Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Heather, and I'm here with my friend Shay today on Connecting with
Oh,
Purpose. And today we're going to we'll learn about all the magic that Shay creates in her life, which is a remarkable human. But we'll talk about just how we're feeling right now, what some of our hopes are for the future. And by the end, hopefully you'll feel sparked in curiosity to join more of the conversation. Um, Shay, I definitely want to get into your story, but just right off the bat, I want to ask this question of what is your superpower and how do you like to use it in the world?
oh my gosh. Um, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what my superpower is. Maybe my superpower is being able to find a connection with those who don't want to connect.
Hmm.
Yeah. I go back to one of our training classes at Core Bauer back in St. Paul, and there was this girl in class, and she didn't want to be anybody's friend. Like there was that glass wall right there, and I picked up on that, and it like for me, it's like, oh, you just gave me a challenge, girl. I'm gonna be your friend. And it's funny because afterwards, we are friends now. And afterwards, she was totally like, you knew right away I didn't want to be anyone's friend. I was like, yeah, and I wanted to be your best friend, like besties. So it was like so funny because, it took a little bit of like 2, 3 weeks, but being able to like being able to help her let her guard down to trust and to kind of open her heart and her mind and her soul into you know the fact that people you have to let people in a little bit in order to feel this like power of love.
Hmm. How do you, yeah, how do you go about that? I mean, I imagine it's different for every person, I'm sure, but is it like a fairly intuitive thing, or do you kind of have a process that you're like, okay, I see someone whose wall is up, and you kind of go through certain steps, or how is that process for you?
Yeah, another great question. I don't really talk about it very much, but since I was little, um I don't know if you call it a sixth sense or whatever you want to call it, but it is a very innate and intuitive portion of who I am. Like I feel energies and vibrations of positive and negative. I can feel people's emotions. Like I know a lot of people call it like an empath or something like that, but I mean, I've always been able to connect since I was little, even with animals. And I don't know if it's because I grew up with like baby bunnies and cats and dogs, and like I've always been able to like pick up even on their emotions, and I watched them, and I learned from them. And being out in nature, you learn, you pick up on the vibration of like the earth. Like I always talk about in my classes, like in different areas where I teach at Sunnylands out in Rancho Mirage, California, this huge class. And when you're in the middle of the Great Lawn, I talk about you can feel the heartbeat of the earth. Like you can feel those vibrations, the energies from maybe past or present or whatever it is. But that's the long answer because I'm a long-winded person. But yeah, it's definitely deep embedded in my soul. Like I feel it.
Yeah. I mean, so amazing. I think when you're bringing up the word like empath, like for sure, I think lots of people are empathetic and empaths. I definitely identify with that myself. And but as you describe it, my way of, maybe it's a way of recognizing it, I think is different. And even so, everybody, Shay and I met through yoga teacher training now, like gosh, 8 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost, let's just say almost 10 years ago. That
Yeah,
sounds
yeah. And maybe before that, just practicing yoga. But anyway, I remember in our graduation, like now as you're talking about your kind of sixth sense, if you will, I remember you mentioning just something about that in kind of our graduation gathering. And that just makes like a lot of sense when you're describing your superpowers, your ability to connect with people who don't want to connect. And um,
I made those rocks.
yeah, I still
I
have
hand
mine.
painted rocks for everybody. And it was the feelings that I felt through you. Like I put a word on the rock. That's what it was. Oh my gosh.
I remember I still have my rock. Well, now it's in Amsterdam. So whenever I get home, I'll have it again. But it's you wrote dream on mine, which is just so great. Um, I guess speaking of dreams, a question
Yeah.
is what is I mean, I'm curious about what is your dream for the world? And I'm thinking about that question really in light of our very present reality. It may be if something else came to you, but right, for whenever you're watching this, right now we're recording this like a week or two into the coronavirus pandemic and like on lockdown and all these things. So, but anyway, just like what is your dream for the world? If it's coming out of our present or just in general?
Um, you know what? My dream for the world is what's on your back wall. It's love. It's if there's one thing that I noticed right before all of this hit, I had a lot of just busyness going on in my life. And everyone will say, "Oh my gosh, you're so busy. I see you on Facebook. You're doing this. You're so busy. I can't call you. I can't. You're so busy." I'm like, "No, I'm not busy. I just have really, really managed my time wisely. I'm never busy when someone needs something or wants something or to be able to give my time because that's giving my heart." So the one thing that if I was in charge, which I'm not, and I could tell the world right now is the fact that there's been, and maybe this is seeing the eyes through like of cancer because of that background, which I know we'll get into later, but life is like a roller coaster. You get on this big roller coaster and it can be very scary at times when you hit that peak and then it flies down and then you start climbing it up again and then it flies down. I mean, it's constant movement and you don't get off. You don't get off until you get off. And when you get off, you go to wherever you go, right? Whether it's heaven or beyond or reincarnation or whatever that is. But while we're here on this earth, we should make an impact. And that impact should be made out of love. So if you tell something, you're critiquing someone, do it out of the love of your heart. Say it with loving words versus with unkind words, or, stop and smile at the stranger by versus just not looking or whatever. Slow down and slow down with your first with yourself. Start to take some of that time that you give away to others and take it back and give it to yourself. Start with yourself and then go to your family. One thing that I'm seeing really awesome all over is the fact that even though we're socially distancing the 6 feet apart, people are walking socially distancing with their families, with their kids, and they're not on their technology or their cell phones and looking down and being in a rush and grumpy and driving like maniacs on the road because they have to get somewhere. Like life has stopped, right? It's stopped out of the fear and anxiety of getting this disease, but maybe the disease really was us and the anxiety and the fears and the negative energy that we're putting out into the world. I'm not saying that that's what it is, But I'm saying maybe if we slow down and simplify things and start changing our mindsets and amplifying love and some peace and some kindness and some compassion to people, maybe that will have a ripple effect bouncing from you to me to my neighbor to their neighbor. Having that compassion can change the world. They always, I kill plants, so it's not a great example what I'm about to say. But because I always overwater, I don't know what I do, but they say that if you put a plant in water here and a plant in water here, and you talk really nice to this plant, it will grow. And if you talk negatively to this plant, it will die. This is the human experience, a science experiment that really was done. I see that as what's going on in the world. And this is just our world, our heartbeat of this earth reacting to all of that energy and going like this, going like this. And now it's telling us we better stop or it's going to destroy us. And now with the kindness and the peace that's out there and people are connecting like this and they're not able to hug, but they will be, the earth will be able to go like this again, and just ease. And the roller coaster then slows down a little bit. So if anything, I hope that we are able to continue a simplified life. I hope that we're continued to be able to be grateful for what we have while we have it, because we get to have it. That word, we get to have it. A lot of men and women right now who are in the front lines of the hospitals, they haven't seen their families in weeks. They don't get to have what we have right now. And yes, we're behind closed doors, and some of us are cooped up in small homes and some of us in big homes, but there is an entire beautiful world that we get to go for a walk, and we get to walk the dog, or we get to see our family at home, even if we are socially distancing, right? So I hope that this does continue, and I hope that people will help their neighbors and street out when this is over, because they're going to need it. They're going to need it more than ever.
Totally. So much of what everything is like resonating. A couple things for me are, I talk about sustainability as like the word I use to describe, what I do. But for me, sustainability is really this connection of all things. And how do we bring ourselves in a way like back into a closer relationship with that, to find a more efficient relationship with the planet and with each other, in the sense of not as huge of these, maybe it's the roller coaster, but a huge of swings back and forth or up and down that we have. And you're talking about the relationship of compassion and the earth and slowing down and feeling that. And that's like totally what I dream of as well, just for the world all the time. But that relationship between compassion and energy, and the way that the planet feels it, and that we are part of it. Yeah, like we're not separate from these systems. And I was having a conversation the other day with a friend of mine. She's a naturopathic doctor, and she was talking about disease. And I'm curious about, your whole relationship, of course, with disease. And, you've had such like a miraculous, wonderful story, in a way, wonderful, like healing story through your cancer journey. But that really disease is like a symptom of stress. And I don't mean that just on like the internal personal, yes, but also the stress of the entire systems that we are within. So I don't know exactly where that goes, but do you notice maybe things like from your journey, your story to here with disease, with healing, how does that, do you notice any similarities or things you've learned through that now?
Oh yeah. This is probably a little bit easier for me to bounce back from. The first 2 or 3 days, I'll be real honest, I I couldn't breathe. I
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, we're all gonna die. You know, like I was listening to the news and listening to the pandemic and listening to my friends and and it was just like, I was so wound up. I had to shut down Facebook. I had to shut down my friends. I had to shut down my TV set. And I turned my yoga music on. I went in the other room and I got on my mat because just like when they told me I had cancer, I couldn't breathe. That anxiety and that my whole body just tensed up and I could feel it. And I knew I needed to find my breath again. I needed to find a way to um, to breathe and to move through the emotions and the feelings. And the only way I knew how to do that when I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and the only way I knew how to do it now, when this just is scary of a lot of people losing their lives or staying inside, and that first initial reaction is I got back to my mat. I started moving in a gentle way, in a loving way, and a lot of heart openers. And after day 3, I kind of came down to this grounding balance. And the same way it was when I went through cancer again, it's just, I know that I need to show up to my mat every day because that's what resonates with me. That's how I'm able to ground myself. And then I have a bike inside, so I get online and I use my Peloton, and I'm able to do that. I've got a bike outside as well, so I bike right around the yard, or not around the yard, around the neighborhood, and walk the dogs, and like doing that little by little by little, then I was able to be like, you know what, I'm not caught in this tiny little area, you know. There's a whole world out there. I can still go for a walk. I can still go bike riding. I can still go hiking. I can still go for a drive, but now I can't because government shut that down, which is perfect. Like that's fine. So I can still be in my neighborhood. I can sit in my backyard. If you don't have a backyard, you can look out your balcony, or you can look out your window and just open the window and see the world out there. You can do that, and it helps mentally. You have to change that mindset.
Yeah, it's like accepting our presence, right? Which yoga and so much, I mean, spiritual and mindfulness work teaches us of like, find your present and then find how to move and connect in that. Or that's what I'm hearing through you. And also for me, it's like keeping my energy moving is so, so important. I mean, I've, at least now and just anytime, it's like even like mild little stresses come up, like a thing with business or here or there, it's like, okay, move the energy through. But I love what you're talking, because it is all coming back to connecting to your own self, but how your self is connected to nature and to the energy around. I want to, like, just for a moment, maybe if you want to just now that we're like this far in, tell like a little bit about maybe your story, or if you want, it'll like loop into the work you're doing now with your organization, or just kind of like your little bio and what you want people to know that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. Well, through my business, Namaste with Shay, I teach yoga for cancer survivors, thrivers, and warriors through the hospital system. And I also teach, I don't teach a lot of public classes anymore, but I teach a lot of larger, big private classes for places like the Annenberg Estate out in Rancho Mirage, California, Eisenhower Hospital, that Lucy Curci Cancer Center, and then also anyone who I do privates with. I take everything that I do that way, and I filter that into a nonprofit that we just founded last year called Shay's Warriors Life After Cancer. At 38, going on 39 years old, I was diagnosed with triple negative stage 3 breast cancer. The first doctor that I saw was like, yeah, you're gonna lose your breast and it doesn't look good and it's probably spread. I mean, it was kind of like this, someone tells you that at a young age and you have a daughter at home who's 12 years old, you stop breathing dead in your tracks. And then I went in, of course, into that fight and flight mode. And I was like, you know what? No, like, I'm going to figure a way out of this. And I have to. And I had to change my mindset literally as soon as I walked out that doctor's office and find a different doctor who I could trust and build a team so that I could survive. And we went through the entire year of treatments and cancer and all that. And the new doctor says, you're NED, which means no evidence of detection for any more cancer. You're cancer free. And you're like, yes, this is awesome and everything. And then about 2 months later, you start to get these vibrations of fear and anxiety again. And it's because you are no longer in a chemo room, protected by doctors and nurses taking your blood and your blood pressure, and even the chemotherapy becomes your friend because that stuff is keeping you alive. And the radiation or the surgery, like, nobody's watching you anymore. So that safety net that you once had now is gone. And so these anxieties and fears start coming into your life again. And now every time you have a backache or a neck pain or your tummy hurts for more than a day or so, or you have a scab that isn't healing, you maybe look at it and you turn to Dr. Google and you start researching, lung cancer, neck and low back pains, or, oh my gosh, I have melanoma, or like you start to go down this path that you really don't want to. And so Shay's Warriors Life After Cancer was developed for life after cancer, because anyone who's been a cancer patient knows that there is no life after cancer. It's cancer. You're not cancer free. You are cancer free physically, but not mentally. And after you're done with your treatments and after the nurses and the support system, your friends, your family think that life goes back to normal for you, it doesn't, not mentally. So our team is now, nonprofit is developed to help you get clear and have community and have support. And so we built shayswarriors.org, and if you go in our community, there is podcasts, and there is meetup groups, and there is blogs, and there is a whole social media community of online help and supporters that are there for you, that have gone through the same thing that you have. And we connect you together, and so that you're able to kind of go forward. And it's not perfect. Life isn't perfect, right? We just change our mindset to have a little bit more gratitude every day. And life is a gift to be able to live one more day. Because whether it's cancer or it's a car accident or whatever, eventually we will die.
Yeah.
And in America, people don't like to talk about death, right? It's scary. And that's why this whole pandemic has been scary for a lot of people, because, we see what's going on in Italy. We've seen what's going on in China, but we need to be grateful for what we have here and now. And that's the part of yoga, the philosophies, staying in the present and bringing everything back together, like keeping your heart open, your possibilities open. We don't know when our last day is. So to really forgive while we can and love as much as we can, because our life is a gift.
And I mean, it's so beautiful. I just like, I feel you. Always when we talk, I feel you, but I feel you talking about Shay's Warriors, and it's warm and just so much love in it. And I'm also like having these thoughts of when you first started talking about your superpower, of connecting to people who maybe don't want to connect. And Shay's Warriors is not that, but it's like helping people connect to feel some sense of barrier with connecting with the world, right? Of people who don't understand what they're going through. But then this sense, like I know we've talked before of, oh, but I'm supposed to be happy because I'm, cancer free, or, whatever we're supposed to be, or you as a cancer survivor are supposed to feel. I think that Shay's Warriors like helps create those spaces for, I mean, that's what you're saying, like for a place for people to connect who don't otherwise know how. Just one more question here, and it's kind of along these lines of connecting. And that is like, do you feel any barrier that would like barrier in front of you personally or something external, whatever it is that if was removed would allow you to do like this work, whether it's through Shay's Warriors or your superpower of connecting more? What barrier do you feel stands in your way of doing even more?
I think the barrier that stands in the way of our nonprofit or any nonprofit, or anyone that's trying to do good in the world, it comes down to money, and it comes down to determination. Um, Time and money are always tough. If I had all the money that I needed for this, I think it would definitely help to be able to move forward quicker, But the one thing that I do have on my side is I have faith. And I have faith that everything happens in its own perfect timing for its own purpose. So my mind is my only barrier, because really it doesn't have to do with money, and it doesn't have to do with it, but it always has to do with time. But it has to do with my expectations of when I want things to happen. So that if I remember that, keep that in the front mind, that in its perfect time, the money will come, and Shay's Warriors will be able to move forward in every community that's out there, whether it's California or Minnesota or North Dakota or Michigan or even as far as Dubai. Little Shay's Warriors communities can be set up in all these places. So it's about reaching out to my friends and my family that I don't need to ask for money, but I need to ask them to share Shay's Warriors, share our community, help us get the word out there. Because the more and more people that can get help from that, the more and more we get across the world, the more and more everything else will fall into place.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Shay. And for anyone who's listening, anytime you're listening to this, if you feel sparked by anything we said, where it's Shay's Warriors or the relationship between our compassion and our planet and our health, whatever it is, just reach out and let's continue this conversation. And I'll connect you with Shay, or we'll chat together like in this space. But yeah, for now, just have a great day, and thanks for listening.
Yay.